David was a quiet man, the kind of man people saw every day but never really noticed. Every morning he woke up at exactly 6 a.m. His routine never changed. He brushed his teeth, took a bath, wore a clean, simple shirt, and left his small apartment. He walked calmly to work, greeting people with a soft smile. "Good morning," he would say. Nothing more. At the office, David sat behind his desk and worked on his computer. He spoke only when necessary. He didn't join others for lunch. He didn't laugh loudly. Some people thought he was shy. Others thought he was boring. But nobody knew the truth. Nobody knew that David was living two completely different lives. Because when the sun went down, everything changed. At exactly 7 p.m., David returned home, locked his door, and pulled out a black bag from under his bed. Inside were dark clothes, gloves, and a mask. He stood in front of the mirror and slowly put them on. The quiet man disappeared. In his place stood someone else, someone stronger, someone fearless, someone who lived in the shadows. That night, like many nights before, David stepped out into the darkness. He moved through the streets like he had done it 100 times. His eyes were sharp. His steps were silent. He knew where he was going. At the end of a quiet street stood a large, beautiful house. It looked peaceful on the outside, but David knew better. He climbed the fence quickly and entered through a window. Inside, everything was quiet. David moved carefully, opening drawers, checking documents, looking for anything that could prove what he already suspected. Then he heard a voice. He froze. Footsteps approached. A man entered the room talking on the phone. "Yes, everything is ready," the man said. "The money will be delivered tomorrow." David stayed hidden, listening closely. "And the girl?" the voice on the phone asked. The man smiled. "She won't say anything." David's heart skipped. The girl? Something was wrong. David slowly took out his phone and recorded everything. The man left the room. David waited a few seconds, then quietly escaped the house. Back in his apartment, he removed his mask and sat down. He replayed the recording again and again. "The girl won't say anything." Those words hit him hard. Memories came rushing back. A small room, a frightened voice, tears, his younger sister, Anna. Years ago, she had disappeared without a trace. The police searched, but nothing was found. Weeks later, she was discovered, but it was too late. That moment had changed David forever. He had promised himself that no one else would suffer like she did. That promise was the reason he lived two lives. By day, he was invisible. By night, he hunted people like the man he had just seen. The next few days, David followed that man carefully. He watched where he went, who he met, what he did. Something dark was happening. One night, the man drove to an old warehouse far from the city. David followed him. The place felt wrong, silent, empty, dangerous. David waited until everything was quiet, then slipped inside. The air was cold. Then he heard something, a soft cry. "Help!" David stopped breathing. That voice, it reminded him of Anna. "Hello?" he whispered. The crying came again, weak and scared. "Please, help me!" David ran toward the sound. He found a small locked room. He broke it open. Inside, a young girl sat tied up, shaking with fear. David quickly untied her. "It's okay," he said softly. "You're safe now." The girl grabbed him tightly. "They said they won't let me go," she cried. David's eyes hardened. "No one will hurt you again," he said. Suddenly, the door slammed shut. Lights turned on. Men surrounded them. And then the leader stepped forward. the same man from the house. "Well, well," he said with a smile, "you shouldn't be here." David stood in front of the girl, protecting her. "You picked the wrong place," the man continued. David didn't move. "I know what you're doing," David said quietly. The man laughed. "And what will you do about it?" Everything happened fast. The men attacked. But David was ready. He moved quickly, fighting with strength and control. One by one, the men fell. He didn't fight like a normal man. He fought like someone who had lost everything once and refused to lose again. The leader tried to run, but David caught him. "You're not going anywhere," David said. Minutes later, the sound of police sirens filled the air. David had already called them before entering. The girl was safe. The criminals were arrested. As the police rushed in, David stepped back into the shadows, and then he disappeared. The next morning, everything was normal again. David woke up at 6 a.m. He brushed his teeth. He wore his clean shirt. He went to work. "Good morning," he said softly. Nobody knew what he had done. Nobody knew who he really was. To the world, he was just David, a quiet man with a simple life. But somewhere in the city, a young girl told her story. "A man saved me," she said. "Who was he?" they asked. She smiled softly. "I don't know his name." And maybe that's how it was meant to be, because some people don't live for attention. They don't live for praise.